we're going to talk a little bit about Petra and the Nabateans. Who were the Nabateans? Well, to be honest, we don't really know. Scholars aren't entirely sure where the Nabateans came from. It is believed that they were ancient Arabian nomads. There isn't a lot of history before 312 BCE. We do know that they settled between the Sinai and Arabia. They did have rich trade routes during the Hellenistic and early Roman period, and by 106 AD they were annexed by Rome. Looking at their art can help us learn a little bit more about them. Nabatean art is primarily for religious function. Despite it being used in a religious capacity, it is primarily aniconic, meaning that there are no figures of people, deities, or animals. Instead, the designs are floral and very geometric. We don't start to see figures until later. Now, the Nabateans were known for their rock-cut tombs and temples. Nabatean art is interesting because it incorporates traditional Eastern styles, and then later they start to use Hellenistic or classical Greek and Roman designs. So it is truly a fusion of the East and the West. Their tombs have 8 different styles of facades. Now, I'm not going to go over all of them with you, but you need to know that they involve steps. Step gable means that there are a set of staircases facing each other, such as in the picture. The crow step looks like battlements that also have the step pattern. These steps were probably used to say something about their views on the afterlife, stepping towards the heavens, that idea, similar to the Egyptians' belief and their use of pyramids. Now, steps are considered to be part of the Eastern tradition, and we will look at Hellenistic examples later on. Petra is the most well-known Nabatean site. Petra is the Greek name for rock. The biblical name is Sela. Rakhmu is the name that the Nabateans gave their city, and it means colored stone. Recent history has nicknamed it the Rose City because of the colors of the sandstone cliffs that surround it. And when we're there, we will see gorgeous yellows, purples, and reds, and it is truly incredible. Petra has biblical ties that are worth mentioning. Wadi Musa, or the Valley of Moses, is where Moses was traveling with the Jews after the Exodus from Egypt. The Israelite leader Moses struck a rock and water gushed forth. This is called Ain Musa, or Moses Spring, or Moses Well. The Nabateans built channels that carried water from this spring to the city of Petra, which we will talk a little bit about later on. Petra was the Nabatean capital, and it became their capital because it was the center of trade. They had extensive trade routes with China, Egypt, Greece, and India, so they were very much a multicultural hub. And we also see a huge population explosion from 10,000 to 30,000 people when it was thriving. The site is actually huge. Petra was discovered in 1812 by Johann Ludwig Burckhardt, and it is about 100 square miles. Only 15% of the site has been excavated, and there are 800 carved tombs, not to mention all of the other features in the site. Let's get acquainted with the site. Visitors enter through the Seek, which is Arabic meaning the shaft. This is a narrow gorge, and it was actually a geological fault split apart by tectonic forces. Later on, it was smoothed by water. So this is the main entrance to to Petra, and it is 3/4 of a mile long. And the cliffs on both sides range from 300 to 600 feet in height, and it's quite impressive. The secret to Petra's success is attributed to their water management system. Petra had an extensive hydrological system, including dams, cisterns, rock-carved water channels, and even ceramic pipes. Walking through the Sikh, you can see some of these water channels. Also within the city, you will find wells. And remember, the source of this water came from the spring of Moses at the edge of Wadi Musa. The Sikh leads us to the treasury, or Al-Khazneh. Does anyone know what was actually found inside of this building? Well, the answer is nothing. They didn't find any inscriptions, there were no pottery shards, just nothing. So, with that, do we know when it was built? Nope, no we don't, because no one wrote on it, giving it a date, no nothing. And with that, we don't know who made this building. We just have no idea. So what is the function of this building? Again, we really don't know. So I guess the lecture ends here. So, see you next time. Okay, so scholars believe that it was the mausoleum of Aratus IV. He is the most likely candidate because he was the Nabateans' most successful ruler, and this is a very impressive structure. This building is highly decorated, and we know that the more ornate something is, the more likely it belonged to royalty. The columns are double Corinthian order, which means that the top of the column has big leafy designs. The double part means that the capital, or the top of the column, is very large, in fact, twice the size of the column. There are other details from artistic traditions of the Hellenistic world here, including eagles, which was the symbol of the Ptolemies, and there's lots of vines and vegetation. However, this tomb also features rosettes, which is a design originally associated with the ancient Near East. The lower half has 6 columns and a triangular pediment on top. The reliefs between the columns have been defaced by iconoclasts and worn down by erosion over the centuries. However, they showed Castor and Pollux, sons of Zeus and Leda, who lived part-time in the underworld, another hint that this was used as a mausoleum. On the top half, we see a central tholos, or a circular temple topped with a conical roof. There are open or half pediments on each side, which was very popular in Alexandria, Egypt at that time. These architectural elements are connected by the matching frieze or the band of leafy designs. In front of the tholos, there is an Egyptian goddess Isis figure with a cornucopia. In the reliefs, we see dancing Amazons with battle axes and victory figures, symbolizing the human fight against death. There are other mythological creatures adorning the structure, including griffins, sphinxes, which traditionally considered to be guardians of the tomb, and eagles to carry away the soul. So a lot of death symbols here, again making scholars believe that this was a mausoleum or tomb. At the very top of the tholos is a large urn on a pedestal. Legend has it that an Egyptian pharaoh hid his treasure in it when he was chasing the Israelites after the Exodus. The Bedouins shot at it with their rifles, trying to see if treasure was hidden inside. And this is why there are bullet holes everywhere. So as you can see, they were not very good shots. Also, there was no treasure to be found. I've been talking a lot about Greek and Roman art styles, mythological figures, and a little bit about Egyptian religion and legends. But isn't this supposed to be Nabatean? The structure is Hellenistic. If you recall, we learned that the Nabateans had a vast trading network, and this was a booming metropolis. People from all over would have been coming and going and doing business. They were truly a multicultural society. It is also thought that the Nabateans could have hired Greek or Roman sculptors to create this structure, and possibly the monastery too, which we will see later. We love the Rose City because of the natural beauty of the colored stone. But it is important to remember that in ancient times, the stones would have been covered in plaster and painted with bright colors. Painted walls and ceilings have been found in Little Petra, and you can see leaf motifs, birds, and even little cherubs. Now, this isn't a new idea. This is similar to what we have seen in Greece and Egypt. So, this would have been a Technicolor marvel popping out of the Sikh entrance greeting visitors, and that must have been quite a sight. Or a garish, colorful nightmare. Depends on your taste and aesthetics. Recently, in 2024, 12 skeletons were found outside of the building. In these pits, they also discovered grave offerings, including pottery and a chalice-like vessel. Sounds like the Holy Grail for my Indiana Jones fans. It was originally believed that Petra was a large necropolis or a city for the dead, but this isn't true. We see tombs next to cave-like structures that were used as dwellings. We know that they were used as residents because of the soot left from their cooking fires. There are also post holes on the outside used to create their tents, so think of it like an outside covered patio with a stone kitchen in the back. There is a stark difference between Nabatean tombs and dwellings. The tombs are very ornate and decorated, and the dwellings are just very plain holes in the cliffs. And you will see the two right next to each other, intermingling all over Petra. The living were right next door to their dead. Petra has other structures to indicate the city wasn't just for the dead. They had temples, churches, markets, and even a theater. And of course, the theater was used for performances, and they could seat up to 8,000 people. During the Roman annexation, the theater was enlarged by cutting through the tombs that were against the back of the cliff wall, and you can kind of see the remains of them. All the way at the back of the site and up a very long set of steps is the monastery. The Arabic name Ad-Dir means monastery. Bedouins gave the structure this name because of the crosses that were inscribed on the interior back walls when it was used as a church in Byzantine times. The outside design is similar to the treasury with its split pediment and tholos on top and Corinthian columns at the bottom. However, there are less figures on the facade. There is a large hall inside with a niche at the back inside the monastery. Scholars are unsure of the purpose of this building, but they have ruled out mausoleum because there's no tombs or any additional rooms inside. Maybe it was used to host symposium. For those of you that don't know, a symposia was wild Greek parties with wine and sex. Some scholars like to say it was a little bit more intellectual with poetry reading and conversation, music, things like that. But all the artwork remains, well, it shows wild parties. So, whatever. There was also an inscription found near the monastery saying, "Let be remembered Ubayyadu, son of Wakil, and his associates of the symposium of Obodat the god." Again, the Nabateans had contact with the Greeks, so why wouldn't they adopt the best of Greek culture, including their art and their wild parties? So, with that, I look forward to sharing this incredible site with you.